Amici del World Protection Forum, io mi stavo chiedendo una cosa, ma cosa c'entra lo spazio con la gestione del rischio e la protezione? Non lo so, ma ce lo spiega Riccardo Maestri, Innovation Portfolio Manager di Orbit e former Olympic swimmer. Pensate, nello spazio vengono lanciati più di 10.000 satelliti, di cui solo 3.000 sono ancora in funzione, il resto sono detriti orbitali e quindi la sua compagnia di orbita aiuta proprio a ridurre la spazzatura spaziale. Ascoltiamo.
Hi everyone, thanks for having me here today. Today I would like to talk about space. After all, who doesn't love space? You may feel fascinated, astonished, or even a bit terrified when it comes to space. But why is that? Let me take a step back. The human being is very curious by nature. And we only know about 4% of the whole universe. The rest, we only know it's made of dark matter and dark energy. That's about all we comprehend. So that's why space may feel a bit scary, because we just don't understand it. But let's face it, space is cool, right? When I told my friends I was getting a job in the space industry involving satellites, their jaws immediately dropped. And to be honest, mine as well. It's safe to say that we're at the beginning of a gold rush in the space industry. This year, we've even witnessed the first billionaires rushing to get to space first. And that is the problem. Now, I'm not talking about the race itself. I'm talking about space. What do I mean by this? Let me explain better. We have extensively known and used the space near Earth for decades, specifically since 1957, when the first satellite was launched. Every day now, our lives basically depend on satellites, but we're generally too busy to notice. But how many times a day do you take out your phone, use the navigation app, or check the weather, or even call a friend? All of this is possible thanks to satellites. And maybe at this point you're wondering, how do satellites get up there? How do they operate? Well, here's your answer. Before they're even launched, satellites are assigned an orbit. An orbit can be considered like a highway that revolves around Earth, on which satellites are free to move. Then satellites are launched through rockets. They exit the atmosphere and they are placed into their orbits. So being an engineer, I really like numbers, so let me give you some. Satellites in the lowest orbit, or LEO, can move at about 30,000 kilometers per hour. That's enough for them to move about 12 to 16 times a day around the Earth. That's very fast. So far, we have launched about 10,000 satellites in space, and 7,000 of them are still there. But a mere 3,000 is functioning to this day. So what about the rest? The rest is what comprises the space debris, or space junk, which takes the name because it's literally junk. It's there, it crowds the orbits, but it doesn't work, it doesn't function. So now you're probably wondering, isn't this space debris dangerous? Indeed, very much so. In fact, if you think about it, the more objects we have in orbit, the more the orbits get crowded. And the more they get crowded, the higher the risk of objects colliding with each other. Just think that whenever we get to space, we send a satellite or a human being, we need to pass the lowest orbit. Of course, it would be ideal to have clean space, right? So to avoid any incidents. But only in the lowest orbit so far, we have 100 million pieces larger than 1 millimeter. And yeah, you might be thinking, well, 1 millimeter is not that big. And you're right, except for the fact that at those velocities, the impact that a piece of 1 millimeter can have is the same as an exploding grenade on contact. So here's my question for you. Would it be better to pause or stop progress in order to support sustainability? Or maybe we can find a midway point between the two things. So like in many gold rushes, sustainability isn't really the primary focus. But indeed, it is something that we all must focus on, and it depends on us. A great example of this, that's taking proactive action towards this, is my company, The Orbit, which I'm proud of it because they developed a system that can be implemented in satellites before they're launched. The Orbit operates in the space solution field, and with this system, they can take the satellite out of the orbit at the end of its life cycle. This means that once the satellite completes its life cycle, it doesn't work anymore, it can be moved away from the orbit. From here, the name. So this means that once you take the satellite out of the orbit, it can be either going up or down. So let me explain better. If it goes down, it will reach the Earth's atmosphere. It will fall, it will burn up, and be destroyed. Instead, if it goes up, it won't be destroyed, but at least it will move away from the orbit, leaving space for other objects. It will go to a graveyard orbit, which takes the name because it collects all satellites and objects that currently are not working anymore. So let me sum this up real quick. Any technology, like electricity or even fuel consumption or satellites themselves, are necessary and fundamental for the evolution and the advancement of mankind and human race. But I do truly believe that technology and sustainability can go hand in hand. And it is up to us for them to allow them to do so. It is a big part, and a very important part of this depends on us. To talk about the risks that come from this, from technology development, and to come up with a solution together to calculate, mitigate them. Well, at least this is if we want to ensure a safe future for all of us. Thank you very much.